Throughout the galaxy, many of the various sentient species that exist have begun their slow evolution into becoming fully fledged psychic races. While some beings, such as the Eldari of the Craft Worlds, have already obtained this psychic sensitivity throughout the entirety of their race, other species, such as humanity, have only relatively recently, from an evolutionary standpoint, witnessed such traits occurring, and even then within only a comparatively low number of individuals throughout their civilizations, if at all. These particular beings can harness the very energies of the warp with their minds, manifesting it in a number of ways, ranging from unleashing devastating flurries of warp lightning, manipulating and moving objects through sheer willpower, reading the minds of others, or even heal the sick and injured. Throughout the Imperium of Man, these psychically sensitive individuals are known by numerous terms, such as witches, weirds, and, most commonly of all, psychers. The powers and abilities of psychers can generally be classified into one of 5 different categorizations, although other rarer and more esoteric variations which seem to defy any type of clear classification do also exist. These 5 main types of psychic power are known as biomancy, which is the manipulation of biology and biological energies, divination, which is used to foresee events that have yet to occur, pyromancy, which allows a psyker to manipulate fire, telekinesis, which transforms psychic energy into physical force, and telepathy, which includes the reading of, communication with, and enacting control over the minds of others. But psychers are not the only beings able to harness the energies of the warp, for there also exist beings which are known by the general term of sorcerers, individuals who can harness a power more commonly known as magic. Magic, which is known to chaos sorcerers as the Sinistrum discipline, does not require one to be psychically sensitive in order to harness it. Instead, those who seek to wield magical powers will make various pacts with the demonic entities of warp space, in conjunction with the utilization of various forbidden artifacts, such as mystical talismans and tomes of arcane knowledge. By chanting unholy incantations and conducting various rituals, sorcerers are able to curse their target with horrendous misfortune, destroy their enemies with gouts of mutagenic warp flame, and even summon and bind demonic entities to their will. But both the abilities of psychers and magical powers share a common trait, in that they are able to be completely nullified by blanks, soulless individuals that boast a negative warp presence. But there is a type of power that, from an initial glance, would appear to be neither psychic nor magical in nature, a power that can only be described as faith, which is most commonly witnessed upon the battlefield in conjunction with the battle sisters of the Adepta Sororitas. The Sisters of Battle represent the epitome of purity and devotion to the God Emperor of humanity, and as such, they refuse to associate with, let alone utilize, the warp-based powers of sanctioned Imperial psychers, even if it would be prudent or even practical to do so. In a similar, if not identical manner to the Black Templars chapter of the Adeptus Astartes, the view held by the Adepta Sororitas, and much of the ecclesiarchy alike, in regards to both psychers and sorcerers, is little more than a desire to simply burn the witch for their impurity and heresy. However, their faith in the Emperor and the Imperial Creed appears to grant the Adepta Sororitas with a plethora of unique abilities, which to the Sororitas themselves are classified as Shields of Faith and Acts of Faith. Shields of Faith demonstrate the ability to nullify almost any kind of psychic power, even those of a beneficial nature, such as those powers that can heal wounds or boost morale upon the battlefield. Acts of Faith, meanwhile, will aid the warriors of the Adepta Sororitas in battle by granting them heightened reflexes, making their shots more accurate, or gifting them with enhanced strength to rain more devastating blows upon their foes within the swirl of melee combat. So in relation to the innate abilities of psychers and the unnatural power of magic, what exactly is this power of faith? While it is possible that some of these effects of faith, such as those granting immense courage or an increase in physical strength, could simply be attributed to the psychological effects of religious fanaticism, faith as an actual type of, for lack of a better term, psychic discipline does indeed appear to exist, even if many individuals themselves do not know the true nature and extent of such power. Within the novel Castellan, the Grey Knight librarian known as Gared seems to recognise that frenzied worship does indeed generate a type of power, though he himself recognises it as a form of psychic energy. When the Grey Knights debate on slaughtering a collection of Imperial citizens who were forcefully stirred into an act of frenzied, riotous and overly fanatical worship, an act orchestrated by the Emperor's Children Traitor Legion in order to provide power to a weapon of mass destruction that they had constructed, Gared warns the following about massacring these misguided devotees of the Emperor.
I have concerns about the effect of killing so many at this particular moment of religious frenzy. The release of uncontrolled psychic energy would be tremendous, and it would be occurring in a situation that we do not, as of yet, understand.
Even the Primarch Roboute Guilliman of the Ultramarines would come to similar conclusions regarding the powers of faith, not only explaining miracles but even using it to produce a logical explanation for the holy beings known as living saints, as detailed with the following quote from the novel Plague War.
My guess is that they are a type of psyker, whose empowerment is stabilized by their faith in the Emperor. I have heard that the Sisters of Battle manifest odd psychic effects when sorely pressed, and these are brought on by their faith. It may be a saint is merely an extreme example of this phenomenon.
One of the more notable examples of faith-based psychic abilities being demonstrated was with the being that would become known as the Demonifuge, Sister Ephrael Stern. Stern would become the physical vessel for the anguished souls of over 700 slain sororitas, who had been relentlessly tortured and forged into an abomination known as the Screaming Cage by the demon known as Astaroth. Their fusion would not only coalesce their suffering, pain, and torment, but as an unforeseen and unintended consequence, would unify their faith and, in turn, protect their souls from being corrupted by the Chaos God Slanesh. As these souls flooded into their new host after being freed by Ephrael Stern, Stern would acquire a seemingly unique type of psychic or magical power, which was described as being a light of the warp but not of the warp. While it is admittedly possible that Stern's union with the souls of the deceased sororitas convent had awoken a previously dormant or latent psychic ability within her, this seems unlikely for one particularly noteworthy feat that Stern would accomplish later on in life. Ephrael Stern would come into conflict with an agent of the Calexis Temple of the Officio Assassinorum before slaying it with her powers. It's worth remembering at this point that the assassins of the Calexis Temple are recruited exclusively from the ranks of psychic blanks, and are used to hunt down psychers, due to being immune to their warp-spawned abilities. This would indeed suggest that faith is a completely separate type of power compared to those demonstrated by psychers and sorcerers. Initially, judging by the fact that Stern gained these incredible abilities from essentially becoming one with hundreds of other sororitas, this would suggest that faith-based powers work on a similar basis to those demonstrated by the Wa energy of the Xenos race known as the Orcs. Wa energy is the unique way Orcs manifest their own psychic abilities. Instead of predominantly drawing from the energies of the warp, Orcs generate their own innate psychic field, which grows in strength and intensity in relation to the number and behaviour of other Orcs within close proximity. The larger the number of Orcs and the more boisterous or excitable their behaviour, the stronger the field generated becomes. This field is then channeled and harnessed by more psychically sensitive Orcs, known as Weird Boys. These weird boys will continue to increase the amount of energy being accumulated before unleashing it as devastating blasts of ectoplasmic vomit or other forms of psychic discharge. However, if the weird boy fails to rid himself of this excess power within a certain period of time, then the head of the weird boy, as well as those of any and all other orcs within the nearby vicinity, will explode. War energy also has the added effect of being able to manipulate and influence reality itself. If enough orcs believe that something could happen, then it usually will. Examples of this include the belief that vehicles which are painted red are capable of attaining higher top speeds, and any missiles or bombs that are painted yellow in turn produce much larger and more destructive explosions when they detonate. Similarly, the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus have also noted that when studying certain examples of orc weaponry, they are incapable of functioning as intended, yet when wielded by an orc, such technology works without hindrance, to the bewilderment of the Martian priesthood. A similar such effect has been demonstrated within those who display an intense faith to the imperial cult. One such example was detailed within the novel Throne World, when the warriors of the Black Templars chapter, under the command of the dreadnought Magneric, engage in a temporary truce with Astartes of the Iron Warriors Traitor Legion to combat against the mutual threat of the orcs. As Magneric led a charge against the orc weird boy at the front of the horde, uttering prayers and litanies to the Emperor in the process, the green-skinned Psyker would unleash its powers against the Astartes. However, as detailed with the following passage, these powers would have no effect upon the Black Templars.
Screaming curses, the weird boy swept down his staff, and a beam of green warp fire vomited from his mouth, incinerating the orcs that stood between the witch and the dreadnought. No machine nor man could stand up to such raw power, and the weird boy cackled through the fires at the doom his gods had unleashed upon his enemy. But the green fire hit an invisible barrier, splashing outwards in a writhing of broken might. The dreadnought was unharmed.
Given that humanity is still in the process of evolving into a psychic species, could this field of faith, as it were, be an evolutionary adaptation similar in manner to the war field of the orcs, to in effect create a series of abilities that can only be harnessed during extreme moments of concentration, such as through prayer or meditation, or through intense moments of stress, such as upon the battlefield or through fear of annihilation, allowing those individuals devoted to the Emperor and his divinity to obtain access to these powers of faith. While the evolution of humanity could be a potential contributing factor, these powers of faith might have more to do with the properties of the Emperor himself. The Emperor is rather unique amongst those entities that could be described as gods, for the Emperor has a physical form within the material realm instead of being a purely warp-based entity, such as the gods of chaos, the orcs or the Eldari. As such, powers attributed to him could theoretically either be generated from the warp or even from within the material realm itself. However, given the Emperor's state of undeath and interment within the Golden Throne, the truth of the matter is difficult to ascertain without him either truly dying or being rejuvenated in order to allow him to walk among mankind once more. While his physical form currently exists within a state of undeath, the Emperor continues to grow greater in power as more and more people accept and follow the tenets of the Imperial Creed. After all, emotions, belief, and worship result in the generation of psychic echoes within the warp that eventually take form and coalesce, resulting in the empowerment or even creation of godlike entities within the Immaterium. Perhaps these acts of faith occurring and providing aid to his most loyal and devoted followers are in fact as a result of the Emperor literally answering the prayers of his worshippers. Perhaps not. What do you think? Leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.